Welcome back to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we are traveling deep into the limestone folds of the Rhône Valley in southern France, to a place called the Grotte Mandrin. It is here that a secret lay buried for 42 millennia, a secret that has recently shattered our understanding of our closest extinct relatives. This is the story of a Neanderthal named Thorin, and the discovery of a lost lineage that lived in a solitude so profound it is almost impossible for us, as modern humans, to comprehend. Let's go back to 2015. Archaeologist Ludovic Slimak from the French National Center for Scientific Research was excavating the Grotte Mandrin. This rock shelter is strategic. It sits high up, offering a commanding view of the valley below, a corridor that has been a superhighway for migrating herds and humans for hundreds of thousands of years. In the dirt of the cave floor, in a layer of soil dating back roughly 40,000 to 50,000 years, Slimak and his team found fragments of a jaw and teeth. Morphologically, these remains were undeniably Neanderthal. The roots, the shape, the wear patterns, everything screamed Homo neanderthalensis. They nicknamed the individual Thorin, after the exiled dwarf king in Tolkien's The Hobbit. It turned out to be a very fitting name, because like the dwarf king, this Thorin was the last of a noble, isolated line. But when the team sent samples to the University of Copenhagen for genomic analysis, the story broke. The geneticists, led by Martin Sikora and Tharsika Vimala, ran the sequencing and found something that made no sense. The molecular clock, the rate at which genetic mutations accumulate over time, indicated that Thorin's DNA was ancient. His genome looked like it belonged to a Neanderthal who lived 100,000 years ago, during a warm, temperate period. However, the archaeological stratigraphy was rock solid. Thorin died only about 42,000 to 50,000 years ago, right at the twilight of the Neanderthal species. This discrepancy sparked a 7-year standoff between the archaeologists and the geneticists. Slimak later noted that they spent those 7 years trying to figure out who was wrong. Was it the dirt, or was it the DNA? If the archaeologists were right, Thorin was a late Neanderthal living at the very end of his species' time. If the geneticists were right, he was an ancient fossil that had somehow been churned up into a younger layer of dirt. The breakthrough that solved this paradox came from a third angle: chemistry. The team analyzed the isotopes in Thorin's tooth enamel. You see, the oxygen isotopes in teeth act like a climate recorder. They reflect the water you drank as a child, which in turn reflects the temperature and precipitation of the environment. Early Neanderthals from 100,000 years ago lived in a warm climate, but Thorin's isotopes told a different story. They showed signatures of a bitter glacial cold. He had lived in a steppe tundra environment during an ice age maximum. This confirmed the archaeologists were right about the timing. Thorin was indeed a late Neanderthal. But, incredibly, the geneticists were also right about his DNA. Thorin carried a genome that looked ancient because his population had stopped exchanging genes with the rest of the Neanderthal world. This is where the story gets truly haunting. The study, published in Cell Genomics, revealed that Thorin belonged to a lineage that had diverged from the main European Neanderthal line around 105,000 years ago. For the next 50,000 years, that is 500 centuries, Thorin's people remained genetically isolated. To put that into perspective, 50,000 years covers the entirety of recorded human history, multiplied by 10. For that immense stretch of time, this group of Neanderthals lived in the Rhône Valley and seemingly never exchanged a single child, a single mate, or a single gene, with other Neanderthal groups living just 2 weeks' walk away to the north or east. This phenomenon has been dubbed the Solitude. It shatters the idea that Neanderthals were a single monolithic block of humanity. Instead, their world was a mosaic of different nations or tribes that did not mix. Thorin wasn't alone in this. The genetic analysis found a match for his unique signature in another fossil found thousands of miles away in Gibraltar, an individual nicknamed Nana. This suggests there was a distinct Mediterranean lineage of Neanderthals, a ghost population that clung to the warmer, rockier coasts and valleys of the south, while the classic Neanderthals roamed the northern plains. But while they survived, they were stagnating. Thorin's genome was riddled with what geneticists call runs of homozygosity. These are long stretches of identical genetic code inherited from both parents, a clear hallmark of inbreeding. It suggests Thorin's community was incredibly small, perhaps a band of just a few dozen individuals, mating within the same shrinking gene pool for millennia. Now, you might think, maybe they were just stuck. Maybe geography trapped them. But the Rhone Valley isn't a prison, it's a corridor. And this is where the discovery at Grotte Mandrin becomes even more startling. In 2022, Slimac's team revealed that modern humans, Homo sapiens, had actually reached this very cave 54,000 years ago. They found modern human teeth and advanced arrowheads, known as Neuronian points, in a layer sandwiched between layers of Neanderthal occupation. This means that Thorin's people and modern humans were neighbors. They occupied the same cave system, perhaps separated by only a few seasons, or maybe they even watched each other from opposite banks of the river. And yet, there is zero evidence of gene flow. Thorin's genome contains no Homo sapiens DNA. The local modern humans, who carried tools and jewelry and possessed social networks spanning continents, apparently did not interbreed with this isolated Neanderthal clan. This contrast highlights what might be the true mechanism of the Neanderthal extinction. It wasn't necessarily war, and it wasn't just climate change. It was a failure of networking. Modern humans are defined by connectivity. We are a species of trade, curiosity, and social fluidity. If a sapiens tribe in the Rhone faced a crisis, they likely had connections to cousins from the Danube or the coast. We built bridges. Thorin's lineage built walls. This deep biological and social isolation made them incredibly vulnerable. A bad winter, a localized disease, or a few years of poor hunting could wipe out a small, isolated tribe if they had no allies to turn to. Genetic diversity acts as a shield, and inbreeding strips that shield away. Ludovic Slimak argues that this reveals a fundamental psychological difference. He suggests that for Neanderthals, the concept of the tribe might not have been an expandable unit like it is for us. Their loyalty and social cognition may have been strictly limited to those they grew up with. This hyperconservatism served them well for hundreds of thousands of years in stable environments. But when the world began to change rapidly, with chaotic climate shifts and the arrival of highly social, invasive human bands, that conservatism became a death sentence. So Thorin represents the last gasp of these indigenous Europeans. The archaeological record at Grotte Mandrin shows a tragic sequence. First, the ancestors of Thorin. Then, a wave of modern humans with their Neuronian tools. Then, Thorin's people returning to reclaim the cave for thousands of years. And finally, the permanent colonization by modern humans. Thorin died in the cold wind of the Rhone, likely suffering from the genetic burden of his isolation, the last of a lineage that had survived for 100,000 years but could not adapt to a connected world. This discovery forces us to rewrite the maps of the Ice Age. We can no longer think of Neanderthals as a single entity. We must see them as distinct cultures and biological lineages with their own complex histories. There was the northern lineage, the ancestors of the Neanderthal DNA found in modern humans today due to interbreeding, and there was this Mediterranean ghost lineage, the people of Thorin and Nana, who refused to mix, refused to change, and ultimately vanished without a trace in our modern blood. As we look at the reconstruction of Thorin's jaw or the flint tools he knapped with hands identical to ours, we are looking at a monument to a different way of being human. A way that was resilient and beautiful, but ultimately too lonely to survive. That is the lesson of Thorin. Survival is not just about strength or intelligence. It is about connection. Thanks for listening to G Fun Facts Online.